So you should all get a wee notification up there now at the moment, just telling you that we're recording this session. So look, thank you all for coming along and joining us this afternoon for our second session for National Volunteer Week, looking at reducing single-use plastics. And I would like to welcome Simon, who's here with us. So look, we're, as you're all aware, Donegal Volunteer Centre, and we try to offer out different sessions just so people can kind of maybe access information that they wouldn't get otherwise. So look, we're recording the session. We have another session on tomorrow around festivals and events, and one on Thursday on well-being and kind of stress and dealing with COVID issues and stuff like that. So look, it's going to be an open enough session. We're going to hand over to Simon, who will kind of lead the show and do the talk with us. If you have any questions, you can unmute yourself and just ask. Otherwise, if you don't want to do that, you can just put them into the chat, and myself and Eamon and Simon will keep an eye on the chat as we're going. So there's more people joining us there as the session's going. And I see there's somebody has sent in a very late request to join, so I'll email them the link now as well. So look, yeah, Simon, we'll hand over to you and take it from there. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for the opportunity to present CUSP to you this afternoon. Obviously, it would have been better if I could have gone up there and been with you today, but I don't need to explain to you why at the moment that's not possible. But nonetheless, I feel I'll cover off all the necessary points with some slides and some information. And I've thrown in a few little, I wouldn't call them little quizzes along the way, little questions you can answer that'll just stoke your interest, I think, in the subject a little bit more. So I'm going to put up a slide show now, and I'm going to try and put it into presenter view. Just one second. Is everyone seeing this?
We're seeing the slideshow, as in the PowerPoints, the couple of slides are on the side, you know, the normal view of PowerPoint. That's it.
That should change now, and I want to put it into presenter mode. It just makes it easier for me. So as I said,
sorry, Simon, can I check? Are you working off two screens?
No.
All right, okay, no, just because, yeah, that's grand. Look, we're getting the slides, so if we can move on from there. Thank you.
You can see me as well, yes?
Yeah.
All right. Okay, as I said, CUSP is the name of the organisation I represent, founded in 2018, based in County Roscommon. CUSP is an acronym as such for Cease Using Single-Use Plastic. My own interest in the whole single-use plastic area was actually started back in 2000, probably long before single-use plastic became the big issue that it is now. When I started working for a company called SC Johnson, who most of you will know through brands like Pledge, Glade, Mr. Muscle, that type of thing. SC Johnson are probably at the forefront globally in terms of, I don't work for them anymore, by the way, but they are still at the forefront globally and have for decades in terms of sustainability, long before it even became the issue it is today. And they work very hard to reduce the amount of packaging and that type of, from all their products, plastic and cardboard. They're relentless in how they approach it. And it's probably, it became ingrained in me through working in that. So in 2018, I wanted to look at maybe developing solutions that would approach the problem more broadly. Obviously, SC Johnson are specifically in relation to household cleaners in that area. But I felt there was a need for a much more broader approach to tackling single-use plastic. So when I started looking at the problem, one of the first things I started to ask myself is, to solve a problem, you've got to know its origin. And I started to think, when did this all happen? And by that I mean, when did single-use plastic explode? Because I'm old enough to remember going into the local Quinsworth or Dunn stores, and all the shelves on the supermarket aisles that were packed with glass bottles, tins, cardboard. I'm not saying there wasn't any plastic, but there was way, way less than there is now. You'll even see in that lady's trolley there, she has Coca-Cola in glass bottles. When's the last time anyone bought Coca-Cola in glass bottles in a supermarket? So plastic, it kind of crept up on us. It started to become mainstream. Plastic packaging went mainstream in the US initially in the 1970s. But since then, it has exploded. So you can see there are a few figures. You've got from 40 million tons annually, mostly in the USA in 1975. It didn't quite double over the next decade, but then you see it start to double and explode up to over 200 million tons in 2005 to 320 million tons, currently heading for 400 million tons next year, and due to quadruple to over 1 billion tons by 2050. So despite all the warnings we're getting about it, it's expected that it will grow exponentially over the next few years. And, you know, as I say, I didn't walk into a supermarket, and I doubt any of you did, on a particular day and find that, my God, all the aisles have changed to plastic goods. It didn't happen like that. As I say, it kind of crept up on us. And as I was doing a lot of analysis into it, one kind of almost lighthearted, but one thing kept coming into my mind. And it was something I saw as a child watching television back in the 1980s. And this keeps coming back to me as, for me, what is the kind of the start of plastic in my own mind. And funny enough, the event itself didn't involve any plastic. And this happened I had to do a bit of research to get this date, but I got it. This happened on Irish television on Saturday, the 12th of March, 1984. Now, I doubt very much any of you can guess what happened on that particular day, or would like to hazard a guess, but perhaps I'll throw a little clue your way. Anyone like to hazard a guess? What happened on that day was the Late Late Show was on a Saturday night. And many of you might remember Gay Byrne, in the springtime every year, used to do what was called the Late Late Enterprise Show, which was a 3-hour show dedicated to new business ideas, new products and that type of thing. And it was a great platform for Irish businesses at that time, new businesses, to get launched and get started. Unfortunately, it was kind of in a similar as to the toy show, a full night dedicated to one subject. And on the 12th of March, 1984, he had a guest by the name of Jeff Reed. I don't know if that name means anything to you. And Jeff Reed came on to the Late Late Show and announced to the Irish nation, and much to the bemusement of the Irish nation and to Gay Byrne, that he was going to do something that people thought was mad at the time. He was going to put water into bottles, call it Ballygowan, and sell it to us. To say people found this extraordinary at the time, I don't know how many of you tuning in were around in the 80s or remember the 80s, but Gay Byrne pretty much told this guy he was nuts. He said, why in God's name would someone pay for water? It falls out of the taps free and it falls out of the skies every day. People couldn't believe it. I remember people talking for weeks afterwards about this guy on the Late Show with this mad idea to sell us water in bottles. It was crazy. It was 1980s Ireland. You wanted to drink of water, you went to the tap and got a glass of water. That was it. You didn't buy it. It just seemed alien to us. I know that was glass bottles. Obviously Ballygowan and all the companies moved to plastic eventually. So in order for me to get an understanding of what happened, or why did single-use plastic explode, I wanted to understand, how did we get from one guy with an idea that appeared crazy only 3 decades ago, selling us water in bottles, to this? How did we get to this? The world is just flooded with this stuff, polluted with it. Why was it crazy 3 decades ago and now it's just exploded out of control altogether? And I invite you to have a guess as I go through this. I've put up 4 figures just to give you an indication. Now, it may appear also here that I'm zoning in on plastic bottles. Single-use plastic, it comes across multiple different types of consumer goods. It's not just plastic bottles, obviously. But plastic bottles are always seen as the indicator, the guide, in terms of where the problem is. And if you'd like to have a guess, there are 1 million single-use plastic, be it soft drinks or water bottles, sold in Ireland every, I don't know if anyone would like to have a guess how often they think that is, but it's actually every day. There's 1 million sold. There's 1 million single-use plastic bottles sold globally every, if you want to think, have a rough guess, and it's every minute. There are 500 billion single-use plastic bottles sold globally every year. And finally, bringing it in locally in your own county, there are 32,000 single-use plastic bottles sold in Donegal every day. So that's the amount of plastic. People are just filling trolleys in supermarkets with water and their soft drinks. Plastic, plastic, plastic. It's basically everywhere. So I wanted to get an understanding as to what were the causes that created this explosion in the use of single-use plastic. And again, after some research, it came down to, in my opinion, 3 factors: changing family structures and lifestyles, faster pace of life, and growing pressures of work. And just to explain a little bit about that, essentially, the family structure has changed. 2-3 decades ago, one parent stayed at home, looked after the house, one parent went out to work. That whole dynamic has changed now. Both parents are rushing out the door in the morning, they're rushing to get breakfast for the kids, rushing to drop the kids to school, rushing to get to work, rushing to collect the kids, get home, dinner, homework. And the pressures on people are just enormous. Added to that, the pressure and the workload on people is growing by 20% every decade. 3 decades ago or so, when computers started to become mainstream in the workplace, we were all led to believe that computers were going to, within 3 decades, roughly where we are now, we'd have very little to do every day because computers were going to do everything for us and we'd all work a 3-day week. Of course, that's not what happened. Big corporations used computers to strip out a lot of the back office administration, secretarial, and customer support, and they dumped it all onto people's laptops on top of their existing jobs, and they have everyone stressed to the yin-yang, with it being the biggest contributor to mental health issues now, workplace stress. So the computers that were going to save us have actually quadrupled our workload over the last few decades. So what has this done? This has created this absolutely frantic race every day to get things done, to get home, to get back, to get through your workload. Your emails are coming in on your phone, your emails are coming in your tablet. The great panacea that IT was, I think most people would agree, has turned on us a bit. What that did, however, was it created a huge, relentless growth in the demand for convenience. So people want ready-to-cook meals, ready-to-eat meals, take-out meals. Plastic used to package pre-prepared food and ready-to-eat food is growing 7 million tons year on year. There's such a growth in, that's globally, I should say. Take-out food is growing 7% also year on year. So we're just shifting from cooking at home. If we do cook at home, we're just dumping it out of a packet into a pan or into a pot. It's all packaged in plastic. And it may sound like I'm an advocate here for plastic packaging, but plastic packaging got its time perfect. Just as this demand for convenience was starting to boom, the retail trade and the food industry needed a new product. It needed a new product that prolonged shelf life. It needed a new product that was better, that didn't smash on the floor like glass and have to close down the aisle in a supermarket. It needed a new product that didn't bend like cardboard or fall apart when it got wet. And plastic fitted all of those requirements. It got its time perfectly. Unfortunately, however, it's gone too far. It's gone completely out of control, and the damage it's doing to the world now is escalating by the year. If I may, I'm going to make a strange analogy that I often make. I compare single-use plastic to the combustion engine. The combustion engine was probably the greatest invention of the last 200 years or so, and specifically in relation to, and bear with me here, but I think you'll see where I'm going. The combustion engine, as I say, was the greatest invention, and it gave us a car which is powered by fossil fuels. It gave us freedom of movement, personalized transport. It gave us air travel. It was undoubtedly the greatest invention of the last 200 years. But unfortunately, we've now come to realize that the consequences of burning all these fossil fuels is hugely damaging to our planet. In terms of global warming, transport and emissions from transport are the biggest contributor to global warming, and they are resulting in flooding in parts of the world that never flooded, drought in other parts of the world. It's estimated that global warming due to CO2 emissions is going to cause the displacement of tens of millions of people over the coming decades. And that's why if you walk into a garage showroom in Donegal in 2030, that's what you'll be buying. Because all governments have said enough is enough. Yes, the combustion engine was a great invention. It got us very far, but essentially it's time to move on. And that is precisely what we need to do with plastic now. We need to move on because we can't continue to do this type of damage to the planet. Beaches strewn with plastic, 100,000 sea mammals dying every year from choking or ingesting single-use plastic. And that's before I even get into the whole microplastics issue and our own health, which is a whole other issue. So you can see the impacts of single-use plastic are just enormous. So that's the background in terms of how we got to where we are today. So I wanted to come up with an approach, which I believe we've come up with a quite novel approach to tackling single-use plastic. And what we're asking people to do is to think of single-use plastic in the same way you might think, or a person might think about approaching a diet. May sound strange, but if you, as I say, if you bear with me a minute, to start a diet, you need three things. You need to know what weight am I today, currently, what weight do I want to get to, and what time frame do I want to achieve this in. At the moment, all we seem to be saying around the world is, and globally and in Ireland and wherever is, single plastic is bad for us and we need to reduce it. Very hard to tackle a problem with just, it's bad for us and we need to reduce it. You need a starting point. You need a finish line. Where do I want to get to and over what time frame? So as I say, you need a starting point in terms of what volume of single-use plastic are we using currently? What's my finishing target? And in what time frame do I want to achieve that? I'll come back to this slide in a minute in relation to Donegal, but I just want to talk about some figures for Donegal. I believe that's called, was it Murder Hole Beach, is it? In Donegal. I had to get a nice picture of Donegal. That was good. I thought that was quite stunning. I just want to go into some figures, and I'm going to start the national down to the local, down to your each household in Donegal. Just over 3 slides, it will just take a moment. So, looking at Donegal in a national context, Donegal is producing 9,600 tons of single-use plastic waste every year. In line with global sustainability targets and the National Climate Action Plan, that needs to be reducing to just under 3,000 tons by 2030. And to achieve that, if you break that down over 10 years, Donegal needs to be reducing its single-use plastic by about 670 tons every year. Sounds like a lot, but when you break that down, and I'll show it in a minute, when you break that down over the, I think it's 56,000 households in Donegal, it's not that big an ask when you break it down over that number of households. And I'll show you how that can be done. So Donegal, as I said, 9,600 tons. Another just couple of little kind of, have a guess, little quiz. These are figures that often the likes of Greenpeace and that use to demonstrate plastic. You may ask, that's the National Aquatic Centre in Dublin. To hold the 9,600 tons of single-use plastic that Donegal County Council, or that Donegal households generate every year, Donegal County Council would need how many, would you think, of those empty of water to hold that amount of plastic? And just another figure, how many empty 2-litre single-use plastic water bottles is there in 9,600 tons? That one will shock you. I don't know if any of you want to hazard a guess on the swimming pools first.
100.
Huh?
100.
Anyone else? Any other takers? It's actually 210. You would need the capacity of 210 empty 50-metre Olympic-sized swimming pools to hold all of Donegal's single-use plastic waste for a year. Now you can imagine, I don't know if any of you have ever stood in front of a 50-metre pool. They are massive. That picture doesn't even capture it. Cubic capacity of 2,500 square metres. So you would need 2 rows of them over 100 each to hold all Donegal's plastic every year. That's uncompacted, obviously. Obviously, when it goes through the process, it's compacted. Plastic bottles, although they last up to 400 years in the ground, you'll appreciate when they're empty, they are very light. So in that context, anyone like to hazard a guess on how many empty 2-litre plastic bottles, water bottles, there are in 9,600 tons?
Are there any prizes for this if we get it right?
Bottle of water, chilled, in a glass bottle.
I'll go 2 billion.
No. I'll give it to you. It's 175 million. 175 million. You can imagine that amount of empty plastic. Now, obviously, again, I'm possibly being a bit unfair here to plastic bottles. That's scattered across dozens of different packaging types. But I always do this. I just say to people, imagine 175 million. You'd fill Croke Park hundreds of times if they weren't compacted. And that's just in Donegal. When you consider that Ireland is generating about $500 million a year, Ireland is generating 3 billion plastic bottles a year. That's Donegal's portion of that, 175 million bottles. So you start to see the scale of this problem. Even in one county, it's massive. So what we at CUSP did first was we broke down Donegal. We broke down each county in the country, got all census data, and we put it through formula and our own algorithms, and we were able to get quite close to what's going on in each county. And what we wanted to tell each council and each county council and the citizens of each county, the constituents of each county, what's going on and where the biggest wins are in terms of reducing single-use plastic. So you can see Letterkenny is up there at just over 1,100 tons. A lot of this obviously is linked to the bigger the population, the more plastic. Quite obviously, because it's coming out in individual shopping trolleys into houses. And then you've got Buncrana and Ballybuffet, Stranorlar down to Donegal town. I must apologise here, I misinterpreted something and I did this presentation. This is one, I thought I had the presentation done for Donegal town, but anyway, I had just, again, not to reiterate too much the questions I had a minute ago, but the plastic from Donegal town alone would fill 3 swimming pools. So you could probably multiply that by 5, about 15 for Letterkenny. And you're talking about probably 15 million plastic bottles for Letterkenny every year. And that's, people don't believe those numbers, but imagine how many convenience spar shops, Centras there are, and then you have all the supermarkets, people going in buying bales of bottles of water and bales of this, buying the big packs, the big bulk packs. It doesn't belong mounting up, and this plastic is lasting hundreds of years in the environment, and it's just piling up. So then, as I say, I wanted to whittle this down. I started with the national figures where Donegal is. There's the county, a good picture of the county. Then, to talk about Donegal per household, Donegal per household is at 171 kilos each. I want to say 2 things at this point. I'm going to be talking about weights for a minute. And often people say to me they can't relate to weight. All they think of is plastic bottles and cups. Don't panic about that, because when I get to the bit about the app, all the weights are preloaded, so you don't need to worry about that. But I do feel sometimes I need to just give a bit of background as to how we got to the figures that we ask people to try and aim for in the app. It helps. So at the moment, each household in Donegal is generating 171 kilos. If you want to visualize that, Imagine your kid's trampoline, 13-foot trampoline in the back garden. Fill that with 3,000 bottles. That's what it would take, and that's 171 kilos. That's your yearly plastic per household in Donegal. Again, as I say, that is scattered across obviously many different types of plastic. But just to put one picture in your head, your household plastic, give or take, I know some people will say, well, we've been working for a few years to reduce, and some will say, God, we think ours is more than that. But as an average, and in order to build targets for Donegal, we had to come to an average across the county based on the figures we had. So that's what we're saying, 171 kilos a year per house in Donegal, which is equal to about 3,000 plastic bottles. So what's our target? Well, so that's fine. Going back to the diet analogy. So I know what weight I am now. So what weight do I want to get to? Well, we're saying the key UN sustainability goal is targeting the elimination of all non-essential single-use plastic packaging by 2030. And what that means is what they class as non-essential single-use plastic is estimated at 70% of current consumption. The other 30% is made up of packaging used, what they class as essential is packaging used to package medicines, medical devices, and infant sterile products, for example. Those need to be packaged a particular way because of the nature of the product they are. But basically the UN is saying, and these are also, these 70% reduction targets, they actually exceed Ireland's 2019 Climate Action Plan, which set targets for 2030. The 70% would exceed those targets. So what they're saying is, globally, we need to reduce by 70%, but that trickles down then. We need each country to reduce, each county, each town, right down to each household. So applying that to our Donegal household, this means that we start with our 171 kilograms. We need to, 70% by any standard is a big reduction target. However, we're asking people to do it over the next 10 years to 2030. And when you break it down over 10 years, you'll see in a minute, it becomes quite small. And we're asking people to use the app to make those small reductions, which I'll come back to in a minute. So effectively, we would want each household in Donegal, if it's to meet UN targets, local targets, national targets, needs to be coming in at about 50 kilos of single-use plastic per household by 2030. And funnily enough, Sweden is already at that level. They're actually closing recycling plants because they've got so good at avoiding plastic in Sweden. So that just shows you where we are. We're 3 times ahead of that. So that requires a reduction of 12 kilograms annually to hit those targets. And that can be achieved, and this is the key figure I would like people to take away from this today, if nothing else. That requires a reduction of just 1 kilogram monthly from your single-use plastic pile annually of 171 kilos. So going back to our roadmap for reducing single-use plastic and our analogy to the diet, we now have our starting point, 171 kilos. We now have our finishing point, 51 kilos, and we now have our time frame to get there, 10 years. Now, 10 years, some people say that's a long time, but plastic is everywhere now. No one's going to be able to get rid of it overnight. But if we set ourselves on a road, and I always say 2010, 2011 doesn't seem like that long ago to me, and it won't feel like it when we're in 2030, we'll be looking back, and if we've achieved this, it will be an enormous contribution to the country's environment, landscape, beauty spots. It'll just be unquantifiable almost. So going back to that 1 kilo reduction per household every month, and it's important to say that we're not asking people to find a new 1 kilo every month. Starting January 2021, identify 1 kilo, and I'll show you how to do that in a minute. Repeat that 1 kilo each month for 12 months, the same product. Then the following January, find another 1 kilo and repeat that for 12 months. That brings you down precisely to 51 kilos by 2030. And the app does all the measuring and calculations for you, which I'll come to. So the 672 tons isn't a big ask when you divide it out buy 1 kilo across, you'll never get everyone, but it's what we're aiming for, to get every household. You'll never get half of them possibly. But, I'm trying to emphasize to people the benefits if we can break it down over a number of years in small steps. What do we each need to do? Well, I'm going to give you a brief run through now of the CUSP app and just show you how it will work for you in Donegal. Again, apologies, I designed the screen grabs for Donegal Town. I just misinterpreted that. I could have done them for Letterkenny, but it's the same story, the same concept. So I'm just going to go through a few screen grabs and show you how the app works and how you should use it. So it's an octopus logo on it that we just did. So it's free to download from the App Store, iOS or Android. Just look for CUSP single-use plastic calc. I can send that on to Eamon afterwards. So the first thing you're asked to do when you go into the app is set location. Important to say at this stage, from the point of view of GDPR, we do not ask people for their name, address or phone number in the app. We've just decided to avoid that altogether. And quite frankly, we don't really need that information. We do need to know, however, for the purposes of collating data about each town and for the county council, we do need to know where roughly you are. So you go into set location and on the left-hand side, you'll see every county in the country. And then once you hit Donegal, it'll bring up about, I think, 30 towns or villages in Donegal. In this case, I've selected Donegal Town. And so that's the location. So you put in the location, the town, the village. Townlands are a bit more tricky. We haven't gone with them yet, but the nearest town or village to you, and we've listed, I think, the top 30 in Donegal, which is quite an extensive list. So once you've selected your location, as in Donegal Town, you're ready to track your plastic use. I should track your plastic use. This takes no more than 7-10 minutes. You'll see down below now, it's identified that you're saying you're in Donegal Town. That helps count the plastic. And then you start the process. What we have done with the app is, in the first year anyway, we've listed 22 of the more common items of single-use plastic found in Irish homes, from cups, bottles, meat trays, fresh meat trays, laundry detergent bottles. There's about 20. You could go on to 35, 45, you could keep going. But just to keep it simple enough, we didn't want too much on it for the first year. As I said, we've preloaded all the weights for these items in, so you've nothing to do really. Before I show you what has to happen, where I've circled there, on each of those categories, be it fresh meat trays, sliced cooked meat trays, coffee cups, you'll get hints and tips on how to reduce for each of those items. I should go here. These arrows here, they're hard to see, but there's arrows there that enable you to click into each one of those products. And basically what you have here is a plus or minus button, and you indicate from till receipts or from your own knowledge. Most people have a rough idea of what they're buying week on week. They have a good idea of what they're buying week on week. So most people, so on this instance, I put in 10. Just one funny little story. When we launched the app first, when we launched the app in the first few weeks, someone came back to us and said, because the way the developer set up the app, I didn't build the app, I got someone to build it for me. We just had 2 digits. So you could go from 1 to 99. And someone came back and said, I can't go over 99. And we said, well, why would you want to? We were going, what are you using at that rate every month? But he said he buys huge amounts of bottled water, small bottles for school, small bottles for kids, big bottles. So he was using over 100 bottles. So we had to change it to a 3. You can go to 999. If someone comes back to me after that, I will be worried. But so basically, what I've done there is on the red box there, I've plus or minus. So I've just put in, for the purposes of demonstrating here, 10. I've said I'm using 10 fresh meat trays every month. And then that pops up over here, that populates over here. Once you've gone through the 22 items, and some of those may actually be 0, you may not be using any of them. Some of them could be high usage. But as I say, it's a simple up-down button. You just click how many of each item you use. It takes a couple of minutes to go through the 22. That's all. We timed it at about 7 minutes to go through them. And then you hit save down below. That's you finished the first stage of it, and it'll give you your weight in plastic. Now, I just did a small one for demonstration, but most households will come in between 10 and 20 kilos per month, the average being 14. But most will come in at about between 10 and 20 kilos a month. One, just as an aside, one of the unique features we've added to the app is a CO2 calculator. This is, I believe, one of the first times it's been done anywhere. We can calculate the CO2 emissions off your plastic. And you'll see that as a figure, and you'll see your reductions. But it's just a figure that appears there. We built an algorithm to calculate it. One of the things I would always ask you to do with the app is, some people I know don't like doing it, but if you activate notifications, you'll get a notification after 30 days, after a month, and basically it'll be reminding you. So you've basically found your current volume and you've decided what items you're going to eliminate, which I'll show you a quick hint on how to do that in a minute. So you'll get a notification to your phone 30 days later telling you it's now time to submit your new totals. And you simply open up again and you go through the same process with the 30 and you list your reductions. Now, just for demonstration purposes, I just have them and put in 555 or I put in 10, 10, 10 before. You wouldn't be achieving those type of reductions. And basically what you get in the end is this screen. You get those figures that you put in initially again. As I say, all these calculations and conversions to kilos are done for you. You get your new totals. And this is the important part, and this is the part we collate for the county. You will see your reductions. I haven't quite hit a kilo there. I've hit 807 grams, about 70%. You'll see your reductions in CO2s, and you'll see I've reduced by 50% in this experiment. Now, you'd very rarely get 50% in one go, but again, as I say, just for demonstration purposes. So I hope that explains the app, and that's straightforward enough. Just by way of example, in 2019, when we were developing the app, I was demoing it in my own home. And I said I'd just show you, like, this is how we did it in my home, and it was quite easy. We took these two products in 2019, bottled orange juice and plastic bottled orange juice and plastic egg trays. And we bake a lot in our house, we use lots of eggs, and the kids drink orange juice like a calf drinks milk. So between the two of them, we could have been buying 2 to 3 of those each a week. And when we totaled it up, we came in at just over 1 kilogram. So we said, okay, and this isn't plastic bottles or anything like that. This is just one item out of 40 to 50 that are, if you went around your house, including all your personal care products, your shampoos, shower gels, your cleaning products, all the plastic products in your fridge, your press, it's massive, it's everywhere. So we took them out, and what we did was we replaced the plastic bottles of orange juice with cartons that are recyclable, but so is plastic, some would say recyclable. But I should say that the scientific community is actually starting to move away from recycling a little bit, because the manufacturing of plastic is petrochemical based, and it's generating currently close to 1 billion tons of CO2s annually around the world. So the scientific community would say, if possible, it would be better if we didn't make this stuff in the first place, if we moved away from it. In terms of the egg cartons, we just moved to the combustible boxes. We should have done it years ago. But it's only when you look at the app and you go to find your 1 kilo, do you start to focus in on things. We found our 1 kilo. So what we did, once we identified those, it wasn't last January or January 2019. I didn't have the app for testing purposes until about April. So what we did was, once we identified that saved us 1 kilo, what we did was we just repeated that every month, and we simply got out of the habit of buying them. That's what it's about. So it was 1 kilo a month, but then the next month we didn't buy them again. 1 kilo, the next month 1 kilo. So over a year, we saved ourselves 12 kilos, which is 12 by 10 years. If we do that every year, we're down to 50 kilos by 2030. This year, we're focusing on butters, spreads, and these plastic salad bowls that you can buy salads in supermarkets. My wife doesn't like those Dairy Gold spreads anyway. So she wants to move to, so we started buying this and we bought a thing called a butter dish. It's amazing how we got away from little things like that, but they started serving us our butter, selling us our butter in effectively butter dishes, plastic butter dishes that we're dumping out every time. It's crazy. And we went back to, instead of buying salad in bowls, which I find goes off after about 3 days anyway, we started buying the components, and they last 7 to 8 days in the freezer, and the salad in the fridge, and the salad is much nicer. So what I'm trying to demonstrate there to you is, no one's been asked to do anything dramatic here. Small little changes each year, phase out that product over the year, replace it, the next year find another kilo, and phase that out over the 12 months. And over the coming decade, in line with targets set out in our climate action plan for reducing plastic and by the UN, we will get to 51 kilos per household, and we'll be up there with the Swede, where the Swedes are now, where we need to get to. In conclusion, happy to take questions after this. If you would like to be part of a new movement for a cleaner environment in Donegal and beyond, all you need to do is download the free CUSP app. So search CUSP Single-Use Plastic Calc, iOS or Android. Identify your initial 1 kilo monthly reduction target. Repeat that same 1 kilo reduction each month for 12 months. That gives you 12 kilos annually. But it's the same 1 kilo each month. That'll give you your 12 kilos annually. Year 2, identify a further 1 kilo reduction and repeat again for 12 months. And so on through 2030. You'll get a reminder on your phone, by the way, on the app each January as well, time to find your new 1 kilo. We'll send you a reminder as well. I know, as I said, I know people, well, the developers tell me, particularly people are weary of turning on notifications on the phone, but we're not going to bombard people with, we're not going to send people any advertising messages. It'll be a 30-day reminder and a reminder in January, well, 12 months after you start, whether it's January or what, but we'll say for talk's sake, in January, you'll get a reminder telling you it's time to identify a new 1 kilo. And basically, that is the job done. That's the origin of plastic, why it exploded, and what you can do in your own home for your own county to reduce it. I hope that all made sense, or maybe it didn't. I don't know. I'd be interested in your feedback.
Well, Simon, from my own point of view as Eamon here, that was jaw-dropping in figures and information, and I'll never look at those salad boxes in the same way again. I think during your talk that you had at least one convert to CUSP. I'm reading the participants' notes on the chat room, and some of them have signed on already. So that's a 1-1. So well done. Really enjoyed that, and it's a startling revelation for the amount of waste that we have sitting around us, and we're happy to buy more every week. So well done. I'll see if there's any comments coming in.
And I hope people can see, as bad as the problem is, small steps are what will solve this. And unfortunately, plastic crept up on us. We didn't really see it coming, and we're drowning in it. It was great when it arrived first. It had its benefits. It still does have some benefits, but like the car and the combustion engine burning fossil fuels, it's gone too far. And we can start to fight back in small steps, and the app is just a little guide to people, free to use, to help them do that.
Brilliant. Can I ask
Early, Simon? Yeah, sorry, Eamon, on you go.
No, just one question. So we have this mountain of plastic generating every week, every year, and it's dirty to make and it's dirty to get rid of. Is there any way we can recycle it into make something out of it that doesn't involve burning it or making a bad situation worse?
I would answer that in 2 ways. I've seen yes is the answer. There are companies set up. I do know of one company in the Midlands. I've seen them advertising a few times. They're turning, I'm not sure if it's bottles, it's some type of plastic from some It could be just general plastic, but they're turning it into garden furniture. I'm trying to think. I've seen a few companies, and it's a good question. Off the top of my head, I can't think of it. I know there's a company up in Navan in County Meath now. They're doing near Navan, not in Navan, near Navan. I was actually in the plant a number of years ago on a different mission, but they're taking in millions of plastic bottles from around Ireland every year, and they basically chip them, turn them into pulp, and they sell them back out to the manufacturing industry. Someone in the car industry is using a lot of it. One of the car makers is buying a lot of it and molding parts out of it. Yes, it is possible, but we're just generating too much of it to feed that demand. And as I said, what you're going to start hearing, what we heard over the last decade, was very much that we need to recycle plastic. What you're going to start hearing, and we are starting to hear already, is that we need to stop making plastic in the first place, because the production process for plastic packaging is a big problem, because plastic packaging is the process that's used to manufacture it is petrochemical based. And for every ton of plastic we produce in the world, we generate 6 tons of CO2s, 4 tons in the production process and 2 tons in the recycling process. So environmentalists around the world are saying recycling is good and there'll always be a place for recycling, but we're going to have to start slowing down the pace at which we use this, and therefore the pace at which we manufacture this, and start moving more to the reusable bottles, the reusable coffee cups, and reusable everything.
Very good. Go ahead, John, sorry.
Yeah, very true. I do remember seeing something before about that every time they recycle plastic, they reduce. Food grade plastic becomes garden furniture. It always becomes a lower grade, doesn't it? So we have this impression that the plastic bottle will be washed and reused, but it's not. It's always becoming a burden as it goes. I see Joanne coming in there just about recycling not working, but reduction being the key, and zero waste is what we're after, and that's very much is your message as well, Simon, with the kilo reduction.
And one other point to make about bottles, something I discovered when I met some officials in the Department of Climate Action and Communications last year, that plastic bottles, you're going to see a change in plastic bottles in the next couple of years, mandated by law. The caps on plastic bottles are not recyclable, and the screw mechanism makes them non-recyclable. I hadn't been aware of this, but I don't know when it's coming in. I think it's next year or 2022 at the latest. All bottle caps must remain attached. You're going to see, if you do buy a plastic bottle with a cold drink or a Coke or a bottle of water, the cap will have to be attached by some mechanism. It can't fall free under law. They're doing it for some, it was explained to me. So all bottles, all the drinks companies now are you'll see, it's already on certain types of sauces you buy, I know, where you lift the cap and it's still attached, and it can be put back on. But caps are going to, on all drinks bottles, have to change. I think they want to keep them together and put them into the recycling process together, or something like that.
No, very much so. Look, if anybody wants to unmute to ask a question, carry on. There's only a few of it. So, Joanne, you had a question there about single-use stand. Go on, you go.
Yeah. Can you hear me okay? Yeah?
Perfect, yes.
Okay, yeah. Like, my worry is, you mentioned Sweden there being, free from plastic. And actually, the thing behind Sweden is that they incinerate most of their plastic, and that's how they got their numbers down. So I just don't hope that we don't go down that road in the future. So it really is about reducing is key, because the recycling is just going to continue becoming a bigger problem. It's going to go somewhere, and it lands in somebody's lap, maybe in a developing world somewhere. So the government came out with a ban on single-use plastic, but I don't know too much about it. Can you?
The Irish government.
The Irish government.
Yes.
Yeah, a plan to ban, not a ban, a plan to ban. Now, it could be just another method of greenwashing, but I would just like to really find out more about it.
If you go into, I've got a copy, just go into the DCC, Department of Communications, Climate Action and Environment. It's DCC AE. Go into that department and just, you'll find the plan there. You can download it and read it. It's all there. I have read it. What it does is, I have it in front of me. No, I don't have it in front of me.
Okay.
I know it's going to ban outright in 2022 all plastic fork spoons. They're banned, straws, cotton buds. They're gone from 2022. It wants to, and it wants to increase recycling rates.
Right.
Which,
Yeah.
I know where they're going with that, but by the end of at the end of the last decade, we were all convinced we had to recycle everything. I can guarantee you by the end of the next decade, recycling will be a bad word nearly.
Mm.
We shouldn't be making it in the first place. And there are unspecified measures to reduce other categories of single-use plastic. Apologies, I only read it a few days ago for another presentation, and it's after escaping my mind. But
Right.
it is a bit, you're right, it is a bit vague in a few areas, but it does make strong enough commitments in other areas.
Okay. Great. I'll have a read.
That's where you'll find it anyway, on the Department of Communications, Climate Action and Environment website.
Thank you. That's great.
No
It
problem.
is, yeah. No, thank you, Simon. Yeah, I think it's very interesting that there's small steps, like you're saying, you know, none of us individually have to change the world. If we all do that 1 kilo per year, it has a cumulative impact. And I suppose some of us will do better than others, and we'll make up for the ones that won't be doing it at all. But no, it's very interesting. So the CUSP app itself, that's free to use and free to, and you're tracking the data, then just showing the changes. Is it that is?
We're just collecting totals. Saying you're tracking data now is a dangerous.
Yeah, I suppose. You know, yourself and the NSA and everybody else.
Underground bunker somewhere in
Yeah.
Virginia. No, but what was I going to say? We deliberately we debated whether we'd ask people for names and addresses, and when we thought about it, we said, do we really need anyone's personal? We don't need anything. We're just asking you, what county are you in? And we're saying to you, it's for your benefit. So if you live in Letterkenny and you'd like to see Letterkenny do better, just let us know you live in Letterkenny. We don't need to know name, phone number, address, nothing. And it's if you can avoid GDPR issues, it's just easier to avoid them. And we didn't need the hassle. And I went to school with the data commissioner, so I don't want to run it.
Oh, very good. Yes. Oh, that's fantastic. Has anybody else any questions or any comments or any thoughts or anything else you would like us to explore in this area? You know, if there's another kind of topic that you would like us to get a speaker in on, it's a matter of just letting us know, and we'd be more than willing to do that. Yeah.
On.
Sorry, Grania.
Go ahead.
Yeah, but a question for I have a question in relation to just the use of the app.
Yes.
It's been a very informative session today, Simon. Thanks a million.
You're welcome.
But you know, the different communities who are coming together and forming zero waste committees or organisations in local areas and are trying to spread the message to their local communities.
Yes.
This would probably be a really useful app for people to, you know, take on board, download and so forth. But would you be looking to provide training to people when they've downloaded the app, or that it's sufficient that people who know about it just recommend it to others to download and start using straight away? Is it kind of pretty intuitive without the little bit of instruction at the start?
It is. It walks you through it, and we're actually working on a version 2, which will be available shortly to make it even easier.
Mm-hmm.
What I would say to you is the route we're going. I have spoken to a number of groups around, yes, and I've offered. I've no problem coming on a Zoom call and giving people a 5 or 10 minute.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have to go through all I went through there. Just the last few slides showing them the app.
Yeah.
Enough to do with that. But the direction we're going, can't say too much about it at the moment, and not because I don't want to, but because I don't know the actual outcome of it yet. But it looks like it's going to be pushed through county councils, the app, and pushed down that way. And it's going to be worked with, hopefully, tidy towns is one angle that we're working with one of the councils on. They want to push it through their tidy towns. And from that, we hope it'll trickle down through. In fact, what you might see is you'll see a Donegal specific version of the app.
Right.
That's the direction we're going, but there's a bit of work to be done in that regard yet. But certainly in terms of training and that, we're happy enough. If any group contact us or anyone want to contact us, you can get my name off and email off Eamon anytime. I've no GDPR issues. You can get my name and I can send you on even those slides and you can go through them yourselves, the 3 slides with the app, or I can talk anyone through them if I'm happy enough to do that. I just saw,
That'd be great.
I just saw one question pop up there about reverse vending. Someone put up a question about reverse vending. Where people bring bottles back to supermarkets.
Yeah, that's me.
Yes. How are you?
Good, thanks. Yeah, I've heard of it, and I've heard it's in the pipeline, not necessarily for Ireland, but for other countries. And that basically you put in your bottle and you get cash back.
Not cash. Where I was in Hamburg for 2019, October, November. And it's big there. And you had I was staying near a supermarket, I was watching it. And it's a good idea. Unfortunately, and be careful how I word this, it lent itself to something rather unfortunate, I thought. There was a supermarket across from where I was staying that was cheaper than Aldi. And they had a machine, and I used to watch it in the evening, and rather sadly, I was walking down the street twice in the evening in Hamburg, and I saw people asking, and these were unfortunately homeless people asking people for their empty bottles as they finished their drink. Because if they collected, just to be aware of it, it's a side of it that they need to be cognizant of. People were going around rooting in bins looking for plastic bottles. Because once they could get 12 or 15 of them, they loaded them into this machine and they got a ticket out and enabled them to buy a couple of cheap cans of beer or something. And I thought, it's a great idea. I thought it was sad. It saddened me to see it. You know, some people were using it. Shoppers going in, but there was guys just hanging around the machine in the evening with bottles. Just an experience I had that I thought was kind of unfortunate. I'm sure it does work, and it did work, and people were loading bottles into it. You could say effectively these guys were cleaning the streets for Hamburg City Council in a way. These bottles there.
I saw it in Beijing.
Huh?
I saw it in Beijing. Homeless people, you'd have a trolley at outside every railway station, underground station, and people going, young people going to throw in the basket. You know, these poor people.
Yes.
And they give them, everybody drinks their water and throws in the bottles in there, and then
they bring them off and sell them for
get a deposit back or whatever. So it's sort of a charity thing, you know. So.
Yeah, probably it is in that.
It doesn't encourage reduction though, because you think you're doing good by buying the bottles, you know.
Oh yeah, I never looked at it. Yeah, you think,
that's my bit of charity for the day, you know. I'll buy a bottle of water and you know, donate the bottle, but you're not helping the environment that way.
Not helping the environment, yeah. It's something that has to be, there's other considerations anyway if they go that route.
I think Eamon Ryan was looking at that, wasn't he? Introducing a deposit back on plastic bottles, wasn't he?
There was already a trial done up in Monaghan somewhere. I think in Monaghan did a trial on it. I didn't read the outcome of it. But it is something, particularly with Eamon Ryan, we're going to see a few of these initiatives rolling out a lot faster. And there's no harm in them. But again, I would caution about the recycling thing. Recycling is going to probably become quite unpopular by the end of this decade. It's already, the science community is already saying, hang on, if you're recycling lots of it, you're making lots of it. We don't necessarily want to be making lots of it because every plastic bottle is fossil fuels coming out of the ground to make that plastic. And it's back to square one again.
It's a byproduct of oil, you know, so
yes.
So you have to do something with it.
With the oil or with the plastic?
Byproduct, which is what plastic is made out of.
Yeah.
As long as we're digging up oil and using oil, we will have a byproduct. So what do you do with the byproduct? You have to make plastic with it.
Or you can stop digging up the oil.
Yeah, there'll be a while now.
There will be a while at that, but are they going to run out of it or they're going to stop digging it up? There's movements around the world now to leave oil in the ground and that type of thing. And the damage been done by fracking is horrendous.
Well, the movement is to capture the carbon dioxide and put that back into the ground. carbon capture. You know, so
That
the
is,
only
yeah,
use, if that's successful, and it is successful in Canada in some places,
yes,
as long as that goes on, we will always dig up oil, you know.
but more than likely, yes.
Yeah.
But the direction should always be to reduce any of these activities.
Yeah.
Very good. No, Simon, just to step in there, I've seen that Joanne put up their information about the Cloneley Zero Waste Group. Definitely, that's something we'd be interested in supporting. So any of the groups there, and you mentioned it yourself, Grania, around the app and stuff, we've recorded this session, so we'll be making the link available to yourselves. So feel free to share that on, as Simon explained, you know, how the app works and where you download it and the information around that. And I'm sure Simon would be willing to come back on for, you know, to do a taster session or maybe to produce videos like that around usage of it. Interesting that the councils are interested in coming on with it. So, you know, just so you all know, when the council comes out in a year's time and says, look at this great new thing we found, Volunteer Centre was there last year, you know, but no, it is.
Councils have been encouraged to move towards technology solutions, so they are. So that's what, and the cost for them of building one of these from scratch, whereas we can just white label it for them.
No, it's fantastic, and it's great to see, and particularly, I suppose, with the infrastructure you have, it would all feed back to a central source then, and you'll be able to see village by village the efforts that are being made and tie it in. If you tied it into Tidy Towns points, people would get serious about it very quickly. Yeah, no, very true. So look, if there's no other questions, I see Owen has put up there just the water refill station for the students in Errigal College. That's a fantastic idea, just to stop buying more bottles of water. It's great when you see, I suppose, places trying that. I know I've seen it myself in our own workplace over this past year or 2 years. The amount of plastic cups we used to have at the water dispenser, you couldn't carry them to us. Whereas now you forget to refill them because everybody's coming with a bottle, everybody's coming with one of those hard plastic things or a metal one or whatever it is. So no, it's great to see that change, I suppose, happening in our own consciousness.
There is a movement starting, but it needs to accelerate a bit.
No, very true.
Beyond plastic bottles, it needs, our fridges are full of it, our presses are full of it. In fact, there's a shop, it's a bit far from me. I'm going to try and get to it in the next couple of weeks. I hope one opens in Athlone. I don't know if there's one. There's a lady opened up the refill mill in Mullingar. You can bring in your bottles for your laundry detergent, fabric softener, pastas. You can come out of there with all your refill tubs, with zero plastic.
Yeah. Very good. Grania is just saying that there's a website, refill.ie, shows you where to go to get that sort of service where you can top the jars up. And Wholegreen and Letterkenny are starting that. A wee bit far for you, Simon, but can be for the rest of us, you know. But no, look, I'd like to, I suppose, draw it to a close unless anybody else has any kind of burning issues. We try to start on time and finish on time. So, look, thank you very much, Simon, for joining us this afternoon. It's been a really informative session, and I go down now with this app to look in our fridge and see what sort of stuff we should be cutting out. Generally, if the packaging of chocolate biscuits was recyclable, I'd be flying up there. But anyway, look, yeah, thank you very much, and thanks to yourselves for coming in and joining us to participate in the discussion. So, yeah, we'll talk to you all soon. And if there's anything we can do to help with your groups or anything like that, Volunteer Centre is available. You know, advice, connections, do other talks, seek volunteers, promote the services, whatever the case may be. Let us know. That's our job. Myself and Eamon are here to be of assistance as best we can. Okay, thank you very much, folks. Talk to you soon.
Thanks a lot. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Simon.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Owen, thank you very much. Nice to see you again.
Excellent.
Yeah, it's